In this video, we're going to compare and contrast all of the different market structures that you learn about in an introductory economics course, and really that you study in any economics course. You study them a little bit more in depth in others, but these really are the basic building blocks for all of the market structures that you study in at least an undergraduate economics degree. So these are monopoly, perfect competition, monopolistic competition, and then over here you see that we have oligopoly. So if you haven't seen all of these in your class, that's fine. You only need to pay attention to the ones that you have. But I'm just doing them all in one place in one video so that you have them all in one place in one video, because I was never got kind of a compare and contrast for all of these, and it really bothered me for a long time, so much so that I finally just put it together myself, and I figured that other people would appreciate it as well. So we're going to start with the characteristics of each market, and then we'll go back and do the graph and the short run and long run equilibrium, and then talk about whether they can earn a profit or not. So in perfect competition, entry and exit is incredibly easy. That's what makes it perfect competition. So it's costless, and I'm just going to put really easy here. And what that really means is that it's absolutely costless to enter or exit the market. Now in Monopoly, it's impossible. You can't enter a monopoly by definition because there's only one firm in a monopoly. So I'll just put no here. So there's no entry and exit. In monopolistic competition, again, we have this competition word right here. So we know that there is going to be entry and exit. So we'll put yes. And I really should, rather than saying really easy for perfect competition, I really should just say yes to keep this kind of uniform. So I'll just put yes here. And then we're going to go over to oligopoly. And in an oligopoly, remember, that's where there's more than one firm, but entry and exit, you're not going to have more firms entering or exiting. So there is no entering or exiting here. It's like a monopoly, except that there's more than one firm in the market. So again, if you haven't seen some of these, and most of you probably haven't seen oligopoly before, I'm putting these all in one place so that you have this video and you have it all in one place. But if there's one part that you don't see or you don't understand, just don't worry about it. You'll be fine as long as you haven't covered it in your course before. So the number of firms in perfect competition is very large. So I'm just going to put large. In monopoly, there's just one, just by definition. In monopolistic competition, there can be a lot or a little, but entry and exit is costless, so I'll put, I'm just going to put a lot or little. And this may confuse some of you. I hope that it doesn't, but the point that I'm trying to get at here is that in monopolistic competition, you're not necessarily going to have, a billion different firms, but they all are still having to compete. So there can be just as many firms as in perfect competition, or there could be like 10 or 15. All right, and then we need to talk about oligopoly. And so in oligopoly, all that this means is it's a monopoly. It's like a monopoly market, but there's more than one firm. So I'm just going to put 2 or more, so 2 plus. And then we need to talk about product differentiation. So this means in these markets, can you make your product different? And in perfect competition, the answer is no. In a monopoly, by definition, yes, because there's no way that any firm can enter this market except for the monopoly. So there's no entry or exit, there's no competition whatsoever, so of course the product is going to be different. In monopolistic competition, you can differentiate the product. And we're going to see that that's kind of the entry and exit being possible, but also being able to differentiate the product in this market structure is really what makes it work. And then in oligopoly, there also is product differentiation because there are only a certain number of firms. So now we're going to get down to the graphs. So in perfect competition, there are really two graphs, and most of the time these never really get explained together. So I'm going to show you them, and you're going to recognize both of them, I hope. If you don't, definitely go back and review some of the videos on perfect competition. But hopefully you'll recognize them both, and hopefully this will show you kind of how they go together. So the market is just our regular supply and demand diagram. Here's demand, here's supply, And here's our equilibrium, quantity, and price. So we'll call those P star and Q star. Now the firm in perfect competition cannot differentiate its product, so it faces a flat demand curve. And what this means is that since the firm can't differentiate its product, it has to sell at the market price. So the price is set by the market, and then the firm just decides how much to produce. The next thing that I want to say is that demand is how much you're getting for each good. So you're getting this P star for every single good that you sell. So that's also obviously going to be equal to your average revenue, because you're going to get this much per good. So then we're going to just draw our normal marginal cost curve here. That's an M. And then I'm going to draw the average variable cost and also then our average total cost. So here is average total cost, and then here is average variable cost. And I'm trying to draw these so that the picture comes out perfectly, so excuse my hesitation here. So the lower one is average variable cost, and the top one is average total cost. And we remember that marginal cost is equal to average total cost and average variable cost at their minimums. And for the firm, it's going to produce where marginal cost is equal to the minimum of average total cost, which is also equal to the price or average revenue in the long run. So point A is the long run equilibrium. So we have that the firm produces where marginal cost is equal to average revenue, and average revenue is just another name for demand. So it's also equal to demand, and that's also equal to average total cost at its minimum. So I'm going to put average total cost at the minimum. And I'm not going to go into the whys of all of that here because I've done it in other videos. So if any of this is confusing, go back and look at those videos. But here I just kind of want to put all of this together in one place. So in the short run, for perfect competition, anything can go. Anything can happen. So the firm can make a profit or a loss, and it'll still decide to stay in business because firms haven't been able to enter and exit yet. And remember that this entry and exit is the difference between the short run and the long run. So this is the difference between the short run and the long run. So in the short run, I'm just going to write anything goes. In the long run, entry and exit drives profit to zero. So profit is zero in perfect competition, and that's where average total cost is its minimum, price is equal to average total cost, and marginal cost is going through there at the same time. Alright, so now we are going to move on to the monopoly. And the big difference here is that there is no entry and exit. And so the monopoly is a one-firm market. So this is the market and the firm diagram put together. And so we're going to put price and quantity on the same axes as before. We'll start with a demand line for the monopoly's product. And then remember, we get this, that's a little bit too steep, excuse me. We get this marginal revenue curve. And the monopoly produces where marginal revenue is equal to marginal cost. Oh, I put marginal revenue twice, excuse me. So that's marginal cost. Marginal revenue is equal to marginal cost. We'll call that point A again. And then it goes up to the demand line to find the price. So this is P star, and this right here is Q star. And then I'm not going to draw the average total cost curve in here because it's already getting a little crowded. But there would be an average total cost going through here, and we would expect that the monopoly is earning at least zero economic profit, if not more. So in the short run, again, for a monopoly, the monopoly can actually earn a loss in the short run. As long as it's earning enough to cover its variable costs, it will stay in business. So in the short run, again, anything goes. Because what matters to the firm is what's going to happen in the long run. And in the long run, the firm produces where marginal revenue is equal to marginal cost. And then you go up to demand to find price, and I'll put to find P star. So where marginal revenue is equal to marginal cost gives you your quantity, your Q star, and then you go up to the demand line to find how much you can actually charge for that quantity. And then a monopoly can earn positive profits because there's no other firm that can enter this market by definition. So the monopoly will go out of business if it earns negative profits in the long run. So it must earn 0 or more. So its profit has to be greater than or equal to 0. So monopolistic competition, I'm just going to draw the long run diagram here because, again, kind of limited on space. But we're going to see that this is kind of like monopoly and kind of like perfect competition. So the way that it's kind of like monopoly is that the firm does have a downward sloping demand curve. So we are going to see, this is for the firm here. Firm. And this is really the only diagram that ever gets drawn for monopolistic competition. So we're going to have a demand line here and a marginal revenue curve here. And this diagram for me is the trickiest of all of them to draw, so bear with me. And the firm produces where marginal cost is equal to marginal revenue. So that's all this is all so far exactly like monopoly. Now what's different is in the long run, we know that average total cost, the average total cost, and I just need to focus so that I draw this perfectly. Hold on one second. So we know that the firm produces where marginal revenue is equal to marginal cost. But because there is entry and exit in the long run, because this is a yes, we know that the firm is going to face competition. And so we know that if the firm is earning a positive economic profit, that other firms are going to enter this exact same market and do the exact same thing, and they're going to compete until profits get driven to 0. So the way that that manifests itself in this diagram is that they're still producing where marginal revenue is equal to marginal cost, but the average total cost curve has to be tangent to the demand line up here. So this will be, we'll call this point B. And at point B, what that's saying is that we're going to go and find the equilibrium quantity right here. And then we're going to go up to find the equilibrium price. And at that equilibrium price, the firm is going to be earning 0 economic profit because it's just going to be barely covering its cost. It's going to be exactly equal to its cost. So to say that one more time in mathematical terms, the monopolistically competitive firm produces where marginal revenue is equal to marginal cost, and at that point average total cost is going to be equal to the optimum price, P star. In other words, it's going to be tangent to the demand curve. So in the short run, again, anything goes. It can earn a profit or a loss. Average total cost could be like down here. Average total cost could be way up here. And I'm just going to erase those lines because otherwise that graph is completely confusing. But anything goes because we don't have this entry and exit. Now in the long run, we know that marginal revenue, they're going to produce where marginal revenue is equal to marginal cost. And then P star is going to be equal to average total cost at, and sorry that didn't write too well, at the optimum quantity. So I'll write at Q star. And all that's saying is that when you go up here to Q star, you're going to hit demand and average total cost at the exact same time. So demand, which is equal to price at the optimum quantity, is also equal to average total cost at the optimum quantity. Now profit in the monopolistically competitive market is going to be equal to 0 because of the competitive aspect. So lastly, we're going to go talk about oligopoly. And I'm not going to do too much here, but I just want to talk about it a little bit. So the oligopoly is when you have 2 or more firms in a market with no entry or exit. So you have price and quantity. And I've talked about some rules for this, and there's different forms of oligopoly. Namely, the 2 big ones that you learn are Cournot or Stackelberg. or Stackelberg. And those are just named after the two people that thought up these models. And basically what ends up happening is the firms still face a downward sloping demand curve, and I want to make that a little more downward sloping. And they end up producing somewhere between, so if this is marginal revenue and that's demand, they end up producing somewhere between where marginal cost is equal to marginal revenue and where demand is equal to marginal cost. So they produce somewhere in between the perfectly competitive market and the monopolistic market. So this is the monopoly outcome right here. That's monopoly. I'll just write MON. And then this right here, another way of looking at marginal cost is as supply, as long as it's above your average variable cost. So we get somewhere in between these 2 points. So this is also like right here, this would be like perfect competition. So I'll just write PC. And so they end up producing somewhere in here. And so that's really all that I want to say. And just go to look at the Cournot video, and I will do a video for Stackelberg if anyone needs it, but I haven't done one yet. So if you need it, let me know. But most of the times they just teach Cournot. And I'm not going to say any more about this because it gets to be way, way, way complex, and I think I've already put a ton of material into this video. So with that, I hope that you have a better intuition of how perfect competition relates to monopoly, relates to a monopolistically competitive market, and then a little bit more about oligopoly. So with that, I will see you in the next video.